Basha, Nuwajo, Koniwala, Nuwasuma Waeda.
Like you said, the activities of insurgency closely linked to terrorist group like Boko Haram is becoming widespread. We thought there was some form of calmness in Bauchi, but from the last threat assessment we conducted in CLEEN, it became obvious that there are cells in about three local governments that were identified in our security threat assessment in Bauchi. Then we also saw activities that happened in the southeast in Abia with the arrest that took place in Abia. We've seen speculations, of threats in the southwest. So that basically gives an indication that what we felt could be contained in the north has the potential of moving from the north to the south. And the question you start asking yourself is, how prepared are we? Are we as a country, as a nation, looking at a national strategy, not a northern strategy or southern strategy, but a national strategy that would address these issues, And if we are, then how are we carrying all stakeholders along? It's become very, I would also say it's become very obvious to us in the country that security is not solely the mandate of the government. And the government had tried to address it as a solely governmental issue, as a solely militarized, having a solely militarized strategy of addressing it. But it's become obvious that you need stakeholders, you need the civilian, you need the populace to buy into whatever it is that the government is trying to do. The government's strategy has to be holistic. You're looking at military, which would probably be immediate response. But medium-term, long-term response are governance challenges, issues of addressing marginalization in the country, issues of addressing bad governance in the country, issues of addressing impunity within the system in the country, So what are we doing about this? You also need to get the Nigerians across sector, irrespective of social class, irrespective of religion, to buy into this country. Let me just put it like this. And believe that this country belongs to all of us. We all have a stake in the country, and we all have responsibilities in ensuring that the country stays as one, and we tolerate each other. The perception is not too good. The perception is doesn't assist us. It sends a wrong signal. And I also think that certain steps that were taken, we looked at this issue as if it was a Nigerian issue. We forget, or maybe our leaders forget, that we are in a global environment. And if the world has become a global village on positives, you can also imagine that it has become a global village on negatives. Activities and discussions around the Boko Haram insurgency, you find, was basically limited to ECOWAS, Nigeria, because Nigeria is a member of ECOWAS. But the area where the activities are more prominent, our neighboring countries are not ECOWAS countries. So you ask, what are we doing about inter-regional cooperation? What is the position of AU in respect of this? These are dynamics that the president himself has to appreciate, and he has to understand it. We feel in CLEEN that Nigeria is very strategically positioned at the AU, at ECOWAS, even with our neighboring countries. The Lake Chad Basin Commission is there, for example. If we decide to call a meeting that brings together all these three actors. I'm not sure if they would say they wouldn't come, because in time past, Nigeria has been known to set the agenda on regional security within ECOWAS. If we can do it within ECOWAS, there's no reason why we can't do it at an interregional basis, particularly within the Lake Chad Basin Commission that is becoming wider. The membership is becoming wider, or should I say broader, because of the transnational threats from the sub-Saharan space, activities of what happened in Libya. How does that transpose to what happened in Mali? What we have in Libya for now, how is it affecting the people in Morocco and Algeria? We need to start thinking as a regional bloc. We need to start taking interest in what is happening in other countries, because they're having spillover effect in what is happening with us. When we keep talking about porosity of our borders, it's not only in Nigeria that our borders are porous. Our borders are porous basically because the borders are artificial in nature. If our borders are artificial in nature and the people on the ground don't see the border, because that's personally my own opinion, that the people, the communities don't see the borders, because they see the same people, the same language, the same religion, and even at times the same family on the other side. The criminals and the terrorists have learned to take advantage of that. So how are nation states positioned to take advantage of this also? Yes, I understand and we appreciate sovereignty of nation states, but at what point in time do we collapse our sovereignty into an integrated form, such that we can take advantage of the artificiality for us to be able to conduct intelligence, for us to be able to conduct joint operations? These are things I think the president should start thinking about. As we're thinking about the internal dynamics, we should also look at the regional and interregional dynamics. This, I think, is missing. Once we get it right at that level, we'll be able to also preach the same message to the citizens, such that the average Nigerian that lives across the border should have a sense that he is a Nigerian, to the affiliation and commitment to the state, and not to other inclinations. One would feel also that if the president takes, irrespective of we should have like a benchmark or standard on governance issues. And as the president of the entire country, irrespective of political party affiliation, certain benchmarks should be put in place as per education, as per shelter, as per trade. These are the things. It's the youth bulge that we complain about, that we say is it's a virtue and a vice, depending on how we want to tap into it. We've not tapped into it properly, so it's becoming a vice for the country. When we talk of, if we first take education, which seems to be the basic, is we keep saying education should be made compulsory and it should be made free. And when we say compulsory and free, there has to be an enforcement. You don't have a choice. You have to send your children to school. But when you look at, we don't work in the area of education in CLEEN, but we've had to have interface, because you gotta talk security and leave out some of these issues. And when people do send their children to school, some of the challenges they find, things that the government has said they have provided and it's supposed to be free, are being sold at a cost at that lower level. What is the monitoring process being put in place? What are the sanctions going for those that are going against the law? It's still the issue of corruption. It's still the issue of impunity. That we seem to have accepted corruption to be a part of us, such that things are happening and we're not willing to take tangible steps to sanction those that are going against the system. Then you look at gender dynamics. A sister NGO conducted a study on gender and education in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria. And what are the issues that came up? Little things as little as toilet facilities not having doors, not having different facilities for boys and the girls. So you have a girl child that is on her period. She can't go to school during the time she's on her period because she does not have the basic sanitary facilities are not there. The ones that supposedly have it doesn't have a door. So she skips school for the period of time that she's on her period. 3 to 4 days, what have you. Peradventure is a time that they are holding tests. Nobody's going to give her a makeup test. It seems like the process just doesn't encourage her to be part of this Western education system. So after a while, she drops out. And I think yesterday I read it on Premium Times that the dropout rate in Nigeria, the president has said the dropout rate in Nigeria is alarming. We need to start asking ourselves questions, basic questions. How do we want to define our educational cycle? What are we categorically, what are we identifying as education? I've heard some people say, must it be in English first? Is it possible to teach what we are teaching in English in the native, in our local dialects? So that people, when you educate the people, the mind becomes more broadened. You can ask more questions. And I guess maybe one could get a sense that maybe some of the elites or political figures are scared of people asking questions. So we don't want to invest more in education. Education is, I think, is the first place. Let's get our education system right. And that would also mean the quality of people that are in the system. Because right now, the schools seem to be a dumping ground where you walk all around and you can't find anything to do. You find somebody that cannot even pass the same exam that he or she is setting for the students, being a teacher. What do we want to get out of such a system? So because the country is a basically religious country, then you find people diverting to Quranic school. Whereas one could say it doesn't have to be either or. You can take Quranic school with Western education. It broadens you better. We can look at other countries, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Tunisia, that are basically Islamic states. Did they abandon Western education to pursue Islamic education? I don't think so. So how do we complement it? Down south, you will find that children go to Sunday schools and still go to normal schools. How come it can't be fused? Why should it be either or in one part of the country? That's what should be encouraged. Then we look at, if we look back, some years back, some of us are a product of unity schools. But the unity school system has been watered down. So where do young people come in contact with each other? Even in states where they had mixed schools, Christian, Muslim going to the same school, you find that they've been segregated, they've been separated. Why? That's why I said we need to have a holistic assessment of our educational system. Education starts from the cradle. And the times when we give certain messages at home, when the child gets to school and the child gets all that information, most of us made informed decisions further beyond what we were taught at home by virtue of the schools we went to, by virtue of the interactions we had. So I think that's the first place that we should start from. If we take that, if the country commits to that, you find that other things are like building blocks that will stand upon that. If the education system as it is, then if we complain about the type of people the type of graduates we're churning out, we feel the impact in the private sector, and of course the public sector is feeling it, and definitely the security sector would also feel it, because they're going to be recruiting and taking new intakes from this group of people. I don't think it's going to be different. The reason being that we have it on record in CLEEN that think there are, presently in the country, military deployment is about 34 states, including FCTL of 37. And when we talk about military deployment, it's contingent upon what are the threats within the different states, conflict situation, of course the insurgency situation, the insecurity in the country. And I don't think, I think we might have a repeat of what we saw in Oshun, in Ekiti, in Oshun. And when we had the release of the threat assessments, the last threat assessment, one of the comments we got from somebody representing the chair of INEC was that resources were harnessed. The military are supposed to provide, I think, some form of cordon of security along the border, periphery of the country, of the states, so that there are no infiltrations. The police were also deployed. They had deployment of NDLEA because they found from a study that close to elections and within the close to election period, there is a high consumption and even selling of Indian hemp. So NDLEA goes in amongst all those hotspots, road safety, all of them. And I guess because we're also having staggered elections, you can harness most of it. But at times, when you see this massive deployment, it could instill some form of fear. What I think the governor in Governor Fayemi did in Ekiti, that probably Governor Arabishola might want to take cue from, was the repeated messaging on the radio that, oh, they're here for our protection, don't be scared, come out and vote, you know, the kind of reassurance, trying to reassure the populace, you know. I don't see, I'm not sure if it will be any different really, you know, especially also with the allegations of the so-called suspected bomb scare in Ife, you know, some weeks back. And there had also been some kind of issues in the state with the Christians, Muslims, you know, with some of the policies. So if we read the handwriting that religion can be a positive factor of some of the post-electoral violence or violence we've had related to elections, yeah, that there will most likely be high military deployment in Ocean. I hope they come back. But the challenge is when they do come back, how prepared are we to receive them? You know, if we study other countries where there have been similar trend, Uganda had a similar scenario. I'm not sure the girls ever came back as a group. They just started coming back one by one, you know. Some of them, we can't rule out issues of sexual violations of the girls. You can rule out issues of psychological trauma and emotional trauma. Some might get pregnant, let's be honest with ourselves. Some, who knows, might get infected with all sorts of STDs. So the question, as we are looking for them, and we're hoping and we're praying that we get them back, what steps are we taking in receiving them, in treating them, and providing support for them to get back their normal lives? That is a critical factor, and I'm not sure if tangible steps are being taken in respect of that? And then the next question we ask is, what steps are we taking that it doesn't happen again? That we don't find, because it's happened with the women. So what exactly are we talking about here? I get the sense that we like treating symptoms and we don't like going to the roots. And this is also an area where political parties, religion, faith should go under the radar. And we should come back and come together with a holistic plan. We get them back, how are we going to reintegrate them? What steps do we have to take? Let's kind of look into the future. And then you see the parents. I think about 7 or 8 parents are dead now. What support are we providing for these parents? Because it takes psychological evaluation. It takes some form of, support. There has to be a support base. My people would say it's better for them to say your child is dead than for them to say your child is missing. So that's it. I hope we get them back.
Thank you very, very much for your insight.